Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping right into a really intense story. Faith, politics, power all colliding in the ancient city of Thessalonica. We're in Acts chapter 17, and believe me, it's about a message so disruptive it basically caused a riot. And this right here, this is the accusation at the heart of the whole story. Imagine this being shouted in the streets. These men who have upset the world have come here also. I mean, wow. This tells you everything, doesn't it? The Christian message wasn't seen as some quiet, personal belief. Oh no. It was seen as a force that could literally turn the entire world upside down. So, here's how we're going to break this down. We'll look at this idea of a clash of kingdoms, dig into Paul's method, see exactly how things got so chaotic, and then pull out the big lessons from what happened in Thessalonica. All right, let's set the stage. To really get what's happening here in Thessalonica, you have to understand that this is way more than just a theological debate. We're talking about two massive, powerful forces on a collision course. It's really about a fundamental conflict of loyalties. And this is the heart of the conflict, right here. On one side, you've got the Roman Empire, its values, power, order, and the non-negotiable belief that Caesar is Lord. But then, crashing into that, you have the kingdom of God. Its values are completely different: service, transformation, and the radical claim that Jesus is Lord. You can see the problem, right? These two claims to ultimate authority, they just can't coexist peacefully. You know, Paul was a brilliant strategist. He didn't just wander into Thessalonica by accident. This place was a big deal, a major Roman port, a free city, and it sat right on the Egnatian Way, which was basically the superhighway connecting Rome to the east. It was the perfect launchpad for a message that was designed to go viral. So you might be wondering, how did Paul even begin to introduce this radical competing kingdom? Well, it wasn't with a lot of shouting and wild emotion. His approach was actually super methodical, it was intellectual, and it was grounded in the very scriptures his audience already knew and respected. In fact, he had this brilliant three-step process. Look at this. First, he reasoned with them. The Greek word is dialogomai. It's where we get dialogue. He wasn't just lecturing, he was engaging in a conversation. Then he explained the scriptures, kind of opening up to text to show them a meaning they'd never seen before. And finally, he proved it. He laid out the evidence, piece by piece, to show that the Messiah had to suffer and rise from the dead, and that this Messiah was Jesus. And what happened when he took this thoughtful approach? Well, the results were amazing. The message just cut across all the social and ethnic lines of the day. You had some Jews who were persuaded, sure, but you also had a large number of God-fearing Greeks, and, this is huge, a number of leading women from the city. The gospel wasn't just a set of ideas. It was creating this entirely new kind of community, a new family. Okay, but you know what happens when things are going this well, right? This kind of success, it just never goes unnoticed. It sparked an immediate, fierce, and really calculated opposition. When a message has this much power, you can bet it's going to face an equally powerful pushback. So what was driving the opposition? The Bible is really clear. It was jealousy, a kind of bitter, envious zeal. The established religious leaders saw their influence slipping away. And did they engage Paul in a debate? Nope. Instead, they went down to the marketplace and hired a bunch of wicked men, basically thugs, to form a mob and start a riot. This wasn't some spontaneous protest. This was a planned, targeted attack. And their first accusation was just brilliant in a terrifying way. They start shouting, "These men who have upset the world have come here also." The Greek word for upset the world is anastatasandes, and it literally means to cause a revolt, to incite sedition. It was the perfect accusation to get the Roman authorities really, really scared. But that was just the warm-up. This next part is where they get really clever and really dangerous. They take what is essentially a theological disagreement and they spin it into a capital crime. They knew exactly which buttons to push to get the Romans' attention. And this was the knockout punch. The charge was, they all act contrary to the decrees of Caesar, saying that there is another king, Jesus. I mean, you can't get more serious than that in the Roman Empire. There was only one supreme lord, and that was Caesar. To claim there's another king wasn't just a different religious opinion. It was treason, and the penalty for treason was death. So they dragged them before the city authorities, who Luke calls the politarchs. Now get this, for centuries, critics pointed to this word, saying, "See, the Bible is wrong. No one else uses this term." They thought it was a mistake. But then, archaeologists started digging in that very area, in Thessalonica, and they found inscriptions that confirmed, yup, politarch was the exact title for the city rulers there. It's a tiny detail, but it gives Luke's account this incredible ring of historical truth. So you've got a city in an uproar.
The missionaries are being accused of treason. This looks bad, right? You'd expect this to be the end of the story, a total defeat for this new little movement. But that is not what happens at all. What we see instead is a strategic advance.
The politarchs, the city leaders, they just want this problem to go away. So they work out a legal solution. They make Jason, that's the guy who was hosting Paul, post a bond. The text even uses the specific legal term haikonion, which was like a security deposit. The deal was simple. You pay this money, and you guarantee that Paul and Silas get out of town. So yeah, the missionaries were forced out. But the message they planted? That was a different story.
So if you look at the timeline, what you see is that the persecution didn't actually stop the mission. In fact, it kind of acted as a catalyst. A brand new church is born in Thessalonica, but then the uproar and expulsion forces them to leave, pushing the gospel into new territory, onto the next city, Berea. It shows that God's plan wasn't being thwarted, it was just advancing on a new front.
So, let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway from this intense clash of kingdoms that happened 2,000 years ago? What does this whole story about methodical preaching and political accusations really mean for us today?
Well, there are some huge lessons here. First, it shows us that sharing our faith can be, and maybe should be, an intellectual and reasoned process. It's a powerful reminder that the gospel's core claim, that Jesus is the ultimate king, will always create tension with the world's power structures. It's just inevitable. We also see how easily opposition can twist a spiritual message into a political threat. And maybe most importantly, we see that God's sovereign plan can actually use persecution to push his mission forward. It's an incredible picture of wisdom and courage in the face of injustice.
And all of this really leaves us with one final challenging thought. This ancient conflict, this clash between two kings and two kingdoms, the kingdom of Caesar and the kingdom of Christ, it's not just ancient history. It's a story that's still being written in our lives, in our culture, right now. So the question for all of us is, when those kingdoms clash in your life, which one are you really advancing?